To the north there appeared a tree measuring some 7,000 yojanas. 25,000 million groups of people were assembled by it. These people did not talk either. They did not speak. They did not speak at all. They did not converse at all. They did not arise. They did not move about. They sat in silence. In the downward direction there appeared a tree measuring some 7,000 yojanas. 25,000 million groups of people were assembled by it. Those people did not talk either. They did not talk. They did not speak. They did not speak at all. They did not converse at all. They did not arise. They did not move about. They sat in silence. In the upward direction there appeared a tree measuring some 7,000 yojanas. 25,000 million groups of people were assembled by it. Those people did not talk either. They did not talk. They did not speak. They did not speak at all. They did not converse at all. They did not arise. They did not move about. They sat in silence. Thereupon the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, said to the Blessed One, "If the Blessed One would grant me the opportunity to pose a question and then have it explained, I would like to ask a question of the Blessed One, the Tathagata, the Arhat, the perfect and complete Buddha, regarding a certain point in question." He said this, and the Blessed One spoke to the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, as follows: "Paisajasena, ask whatever you wish, and I will delight your mind with an explanation of whatever is asked." He spoke thus, and the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, said the following to the Blessed One: "Blessed One, for what purpose did many groups of people from the worlds in the four directions come and remain here? And then from between the lower and upper directions 50,000 million groups of beings came and remain here. What is the reason for this? What are the conditions?" The Blessed One said, "Paisajasena, go yourself and ask the Tathagatas in the world systems from which they came." He said, "Through the production of whose supernatural power should I go?" The Blessed One said, "Produce your own supernatural power and go through that." Then the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, circumambulated the Blessed One 3 times and disappeared right there. After passing 96 million world systems, he arrived at the world system called Chandra Pradipa. There, the Blessed One, the Tathagata, the Arhat, the perfect and complete Buddha, Chandravati was teaching the Dharma, seated in front and completely surrounded by 80,000 million bodhisattvas. Then the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, remained before the Blessed One, the Tathagata, Chandravati. With his palms together, he bowed down toward the Blessed One and then said to the Blessed One, "Blessed One, why is it that I do not see here presently the groups of people who are presently gathering from the 10 directions and coming into the presence of the Shakyamuni Tathagata in the Saha world system?" The Blessed One said, "Paisajasena, they wander about and abide right there." He said, "But Blessed One, how is that?" At that, the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, went up to where the Tathagata Chandravati was. Once he had arrived, he sat before that Tathagata. He said the following to the Blessed One: "Blessed One, I passed 96,000 million world systems and have come here, and, Blessed One, nowhere have I seen as many sentient beings as those that are seen there." The Blessed One said, "Those sentient beings arose from mindless trees." He said, "Blessed One, who has seen or heard of arising from trees that have no mind?" The Blessed One said, "Paisajasena, have you not seen or heard of the arising of people from mindless trees?" He said, "Blessed One, I have not seen or heard of that." The Blessed One said, "Paisajasena, if you wish to see, I will show you now." He said, "Blessed One, I wish to. Sugata, I wish to." Thereupon the Tathagata Chandravati extended his arm, and from that arm 100,000 million groups of beings arose. Each of those groups of people extended 100 arms and scattered incense, garlands, and various lotions as offerings to the Tathagata. And the Blessed One said, "Paisajasena, do you see this group of people scattering incense, garlands, and lotions as offerings to the Tathagata?" He said, "Blessed One, I see them. Sugata, I see them." The Blessed One said, "These groups of beings who arose are mindless. These people are mindless." Then each of those 100,000 million human beings had 100 arms, and they all fell down. Then, when the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, had seen that, he said to the Blessed One, "Blessed One, what is this? Sugata, what is this that the people's 100 arms fall down in an instant to? Blessed One, if even the 100 armed ones are not liberated, what need is there to mention those with 2 arms? The Blessed One said, "Paisajasena, similarly, the sentient beings are born mindlessly. They cease mindlessly. Vaishajasena, you should know that this body also comes about mindlessly. He said, Blessed One, regarding these sentient beings, which are young, which are old? The Blessed One said, Vaishajasena, there are young sentient beings, and there are also old sentient beings. He said, Blessed One, which are young, which are old? The Blessed One said, Those who were falling down just now are old. Those who were born from the trees are young. He said, Blessed One, I wish to see the young sentient beings. At that, the Tathagata Trandavati Kshetra extended the palm of his right hand, and thereupon there came 100,000 million groups of people from each of the 10 directions. From the lower and upper directions there came 50 million groups of people each. When these groups of people had arrived, they prostrated with their heads at the feet of the Blessed One. After that, they did not speak to the Tathagata. They did not speak at all. They sat in silence. Then the Bodhisattva, the great being Vaishajasena, said to the Blessed One, Blessed One, why is it that these sentient beings do not speak to the Blessed One, do not speak at all, and remain without speaking? The Blessed One said, Vaishajasena, do you not understand? The land is mindless and it does not speak. It does not speak at all, and it does not understand the heap of dharma either. If you should wonder why that is so, Vaishajasena, some young sentient beings here do not understand birth, although they have seen it. Cessation, aging, sickness, sorrow, weeping, separation from loved ones, coming into contact with what is unpleasant, parting with friends, dying, untimely death, they do not understand any of these unbearable sufferings. Even though they have seen them, they are not moved and revolted by them, so how could they possibly understand them? Vaishajasena, they must be taught again and again. At that, the Bodhisattva, the great being Vaishajasena, said this to the Blessed One, Blessed One, from where have these young sentient beings who do not know the Dharma come? From where did they migrate at death, and where will they be born? The Blessed One said, Vaishajasena, listen. These human bodies that they have received were not made by a jeweler. They were not made by a coppersmith. They were not made by a carpenter. They were not made by a potter. They were not made out of fear of a king. Rather, they arise from the union of a man and woman, and from the possession of bad karma. Those sentient beings, too, are taught a trade again and again, and because of that, endless unbearable sufferings and unbearable feelings arise. In that, they experience the ripening of wicked, non-virtuous actions done previously. Vaishajasena, in this place, these sentient beings who have come here and are not rising up will feel these sorts of suffering. Vaishajasena, for this reason, they do not speak. They do not speak at all. Vaishajasena, that being so, these young sentient beings do not understand virtue. They do not understand birth. They do not understand cessation. They will not attain human bodies even, and these, Vaishajasena, are what are called young sentient beings. He said, Blessed One, how are these young sentient beings born? How do they cease? The Blessed One said, Vaishajasena, it is as follows. To make an analogy, some man might bring a piece of wood into contact with fire. Just as that wood would gradually catch on fire, in the same way, Vaishajasena, one is initially born into a human body. After birth, one then experiences sensations. He said, Blessed One, who is actually born here? After birth, who completely passes beyond? The Blessed One said, Vaishajasena, the Buddha himself is born. The Tathagata himself completely passes beyond. It is as follows. To make an analogy, the king puts some man in bondage and imprisons him in a dark and gloomy building. After the man enters that gloomy building, once inside that gloomy building, he sees that it is a gloomy building. Then another man who has previously been affected by some experience of suffering sees this and thinks, this man is ill-suited for this. Because he has not experienced suffering previously, it will kill him. Reflecting on this, he took fire and went there and left a slight bit of fire behind in that house. The man who had been put in that jail saw the fire, and when he saw it, he was consoled and cheered up. But that fire for some reason flared up, and this blazing fire completely burnt up that house, and the man was also burnt up right there. Then, when the king heard that he had been burnt, he was displeased. He thought, from now on, no sentient being will be put in prison in my land. Thinking in this way, the king then said to the sentient beings dwelling in his land, O you sentient beings, have no fear. Do not be afraid. You should not fear. From now on in my land there will be no corporal punishment or imprisonment. No sentient being will be deprived of life. O sentient beings, have no fear. Just as he reassured them, so too Paishajasena, the Tathagata, who has burnt up all the delusions, has entirely pacified all illness. Just as that man burned his own body too through the burning of the building, and having set out for the sake of sentient beings' aims, benefit, and happiness, he completely liberates sentient beings who are bound from their bondage. Likewise, too, the Tathagata abandoned the stains of attachment, anger, and ignorance, and having arisen in the world like a lamp for all sentient beings, he completely liberates sentient beings from the bodies of hell beings, animals, pretas, and asuras, and he also completely liberates young sentient beings and old sentient beings too. At that, these verses emerged from the space above. The conqueror's field is a wondrous field, a wholesome field and well prepared. Any seed planted in it will not go to waste at all. The conqueror's field is a pure land. The teachings of the Buddha are praised. In order to embrace all beings, the teacher also makes the means. Though he abides in the sphere of nirvana, he appears upon the face of the earth. After perpetually pacifying the world, Buddha purifies the objects given. He liberates the young beings, he liberates the old ones too. From the three realms gradually he frees all beings completely. He closes the doors to the hells. He liberates animals and pretas. Having made peace in this world, he creates happiness in the next. Then the Blessed One displayed a smile and said, "It is excellent to see those who are excellent, and seeing Buddhas is excellent. The holy Dharma, a field of qualities, this also is excellent. To see the Sangha assembled is excellent. The teaching of the Sanghata is also excellent. Destroying misdeeds is excellent." At that, the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, bowed down with his palms together toward the Blessed One and said to the Blessed One, "Blessed One, what is the reason for smiling? What are the conditions?" The Blessed One said, "Child of the lineage, do you see these young sentient beings?" He said, "Blessed One, I see them. Sugata, I see them." The Blessed One said, "Paishajasena, all of them will be established on the 10 grounds on this very day." Then the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, remains in the sky above at a height of 80,000 yojanas, and 80,000 million devas release a rain of flowers on the Blessed One. The young sentient beings too make prostrations with palms joined. Then the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, said these words while remaining in the sky above. He fills the galaxy of 1,000,000,000 world systems with sound. The sentient beings born in the 32 great hells hear the sound. The 32 types of devas hear that sound. The galaxy of 1,000,000,000 world systems also trembled in 6 ways. In the great ocean, 84,000 nagas were also shaken. 30,000 million rakshasas came to this planet. 25,000 million pretas, yakshas, and rakshasas came from the royal city of Ardhakavati, and this huge assembly gathered before the Blessed One. Then the Blessed One taught the Dharma to the young sentient beings, and 100,000 million bodhisattvas came from the world systems of the 10 directions, each by their own supernatural power. At that, the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, bowed down, placing his palms together toward the Blessed One, and said to the Blessed One, "Blessed One, many are the bodhisattvas that have gathered and are here. Sugata, there are many. Blessed One, many too are the devas and nagas that have gathered and are here. From the royal city of Ardhakavati, many millions of rakshasas also arrived, assembled, and are here." Then the Blessed One said to the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, "Child of the lineage, come down." At that, the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, descended from the space above by supernatural powers, placed his palms together, and bowed down toward the Blessed One. He said to the Blessed One, "Blessed One, the mass of Dharma that is spoken of, Blessed One, of what extent is this mass of Dharma?" The Blessed One said, "Child of the lineage, it is called the mass of Dharma when one unequivocally strives for celibacy, and also when, having unequivocally striven for celibacy, one abandons all wickedness. Child of the lineage, do you see the young beings who, having abandoned impure conduct, will undoubtedly attain Dharani, and will also all become endowed with all the dharmas?" He said, "Blessed One, by what means are all these many sentient beings gathering and listening to the mass of Dharma?" At that, the Blessed One said to the Bodhisattva, the great being Paishajasena, Paishajasena, most sentient beings do not hear that birth as such is suffering. They do not hear that aging as such is suffering. They do not hear that sickness as such is suffering, that sorrow is suffering, weeping is suffering, separation from loved ones and coming into contact with what is disagreeable is suffering. Death, after all these sufferings, steals away body and life. Paishajasena, these are what are called all sufferings. Then those young sentient beings, having heard this teaching, bowed down with their palms together toward the Blessed One and said to the Blessed One, Blessed One, we too will die? The Blessed One said, you and all sentient beings will die. They said, Blessed One, how will our time of death bear down on us? The Blessed One said, children of the lineage, at the time of death, at the last moment of consciousness, there is a wind called causing cessation of consciousness, a wind called confusing the consciousness, and a wind called disturbing the consciousness. And children of the lineage, at the time of death, in the final moment of consciousness, these three winds will stir up, they will confuse, and they will cause disturbances. They said, Blessed One, what are the three winds that destroy the body at the time of death when the consciousness ceases? The Blessed One said, friends, weapon, compelling, and injuring cause the destruction of the body. They said, Blessed One, what sort of thing is this that is called the body? The Blessed One said, friends, it is also called completely ablaze, burnt, mucus, belching, cremation ground, vile mind, a heavy burden, tortured by birth, violently shaken by birth, tormenting one's life force, and causing death and separation from loved ones. Friends, these are what is called the body. They said, Blessed One, how does one die? How does one live on? The Blessed One said, friends, what is called consciousness dies. Long-lived ones, what is called merit lives on. Friends, what is called the body dies, bound with millions of sinews, endowed with 84,000 pores, connected with 12,000 parts, and supported by 360 bones. 84 types of parasites live inside the body, and there is death for all these living beings. There is death, which is cessation. When a person dies, all those living beings also have their hopes dashed. Then, because all the living beings eat one another, this moves and disturbs the winds. At that time, they will experience suffering. Some will grieve for their sons, some will grieve for their daughters, some will grieve for their companions. They will all be pierced by agonizing pains. They will try to eat one another, and then, when they have eaten one another, two living beings are left, and these two fight for 7 days. After 7 days have passed, one living being is destroyed, the other is freed. Long-lived ones, if you should wonder what it is that is called dharma, what do you think? Just as these living beings clashed with one another and then died, in the same way childish ordinary individuals also clash with one another. They are not frightened by birth. They are not frightened by aging. They are not frightened by sickness. They are not frightened by death. Just as the two living beings fought, so too do childish ordinary individuals fight one another. Then, at the time of death, virtuous people say to them, Person, in what are you trusting? Have you not seen even the slightest shortcomings? Have you not seen the shortcomings of birth? Have you not seen the shortcomings of aging and sickness? Have you not seen the shortcomings of death? They said, Long-lived one, we have seen the shortcomings of birth, and we have seen the shortcomings of aging and sickness. We have seen the shortcomings of death, too, at the end of it all. They said, Why did you not engage in activities to create roots of virtue? Why did you not create the roots of virtue of the mass of Dharma that increases happiness in both worlds? Friends, I ask a second time, why did you not create the collection of virtue that would emancipate you completely from birth and death? Why did you not make any investigation as to where you should correctly direct your attention? How did you not hear the sound of the beating of the gong on the earth? Have you not seen the sowing of seeds in the field of the Tathagata and the giving of incense, garlands, and lamps? Have you not seen as well the offering of food and drink to the Tathagata, or the contentment of the 4 groups of followers, bhikshus, bhikshunis, male holders of lay precepts and female holders of lay precepts, these 4 groups of followers who are fully devoted to the teachings? They would speak like that to him and make accusations in order to benefit him. And, Your Majesty, you did not do even the slightest thing. Man, after coming to this planet Earth, you have committed non-virtuous actions. At that time, the Dharma king granted teachings to the dead person in verses. You have seen a Tathagata arise and heard the beating of the gong. You have heard the teaching of Dharma that goes to the peace of nirvana. Nevertheless, you did not act. At that the man spoke in reply, I was of a childish mind, coming under the sway of wicked friends. With a mind befuddled by desire, I committed wicked acts. I followed my desires as well and took the lives of living beings. I wasted even what belongs to the Sangha. Unbearable is the fruit that comes from that. With a mind that would do harm, I caused the destruction of stupas. I uttered 2 abusive words. Even my mother I tormented. Of what I did with my body, the shortcomings I recognize. In the great hell of lamenting, extremely unbearable rebirths I see. I will feel the cessations of crushing hell. Likewise, I will experience sensations in the extremely hot hell and an unbearable Mahavichi, split open in great lotus hell, and as a hell being into these sufferings, in the greatly fearsome marked with black lines, I will be born 100 times. After they are killed, hell beings again will see those frightful things. Over and over they will fall 100 yojanas into great dangers, and they will not find any way out. Later they will plunge into darkness. In the hell that bears the name razor, 1,000 razors will arise. They will be born in front of razors in the hundreds of thousands of millions. Due to faulty deeds I have done, my body will be sliced by them. The body will be destroyed completely by unbearable great and churning winds. Continually in hells like these I will experience suffering. All these beings will see me, my body in tremendous pain. I took away others' wealth as well in order to sustain my household. O my sons and my daughters, brothers and sisters similarly, father, mother likewise too, many friends and relatives and servants and laborers, and cattle, livestock, and assistants, I went astray toward aims that were bad. For vessels of gold and silver, and likewise for soft fine garments, and setting out to make a home, through all of these I went astray. A very splendid house I built with men and women lounging about. I went astray through the lute and cymbal, my uncontrolled mind filled with delight. Though my body was washed in scented waters, even now it still lacks gratitude. Body, you are mindless, but for your sake I went astray. In the future, not one soul being will become my protector, when a great and churning wind unbearably ravishes my body. Likewise, I ate exquisite tasty foods, savoring variety with my tongue. Around my head were bound extremely many well-made garlands, lovely ones. By beauty my eyes were led astray. There is no protection for the eyes. The eyes are the cause of those misdeeds I committed after I had seen. My ears are the cause for which hands were torn and cut by diamonds. On both my arms were fastened bracelets, rings were placed upon my fingers. About my throat were strands of pearls, even both legs were heavily adorned. Chain anklets were fashioned for them, and on them too there rested gold. My body had diverse gems upon it, and likewise too were bands of gold. Amusing myself with my great wealth, my mind became extremely attached. Once I had touched very smooth things, with strong craving I kept them close. I also placed my body atop a variety of carpets and beddings. After bathing in excellent fragrant waters, I anointed my body with fragrance. I scented the air with incense of divine camphor and sandalwood. I beautified my complexion. I daubed myself lavishly with musk. After anointing myself with scented antique oils and jasmine and champaka flowers, I clothed myself in garments of fine white Benares muslin. After coming down from the back of an elephant, I mounted atop the back of a horse. I thought of myself as a king. People scurried in front of me. I was excessively familiar with female attendants who were highly trained in song and dance. Wild animals who had done no harm, with arrows I struck and killed. Because I did not know of future lives, I committed wicked acts like these. I ate the flesh of other beings, and thus the suffering of mine will become unbearable. But I did not understand death. I was of a childish mind, and so I nourished my body. Now that death has come to me today, I have no one at all as a protector. All you friends and relatives, why do you look into my face? For what do you wear tattered mourning clothes? For what do you weep and lament out loud? For what do you loosen and dishevel your hair? For what do you draw blood in grief? For what do you scatter dust about the head? For what do you beat your breast? During my lifetime I ought to have abandoned wickedness. Why are you in anguish? My body has become the food of jackals, dogs, crows, and birds. It is of no use to nourish this body. It is the property of the serpent of death, and thus a person will continually be born. The medicine that frees one from this fear, that is the sort of medicine to take. The medicine that the doctors gave, that is of no use to me. Give me now at my dying time the medicine of Dharma that sets one free from the serpent of the delusions. Do not give flesh to me. Though this body has been nurtured so, it will be destroyed inevitably. Since it bestows suffering, why take up this heap of wickedness? This body, though tended with great care, will engage in vicious acts. Son and daughter, for what reason do you gaze upon me with your eyes? Protect me from this illness. O my son and my daughter, why do you weep pointlessly? Do nothing unworthy for my sake. In order to support you, I even plundered others' wealth. Now that my death time has arrived, it is hopeless what to do. I am terrified of birth and lower realms. I am completely crushed by dying as well. I feel acutely the sense of touch, of discrimination. Sensations, and conditioned mental factors. Due to craving, childish beings wander and reach unbearable results. Birth into bad families, there too one is bound to grief. Knowing I had little merit, I caused trouble for others. My generosity and ethics deteriorated completely, and I turned my back on the Dharma. Because I did not understand rebirth, I was deluded by the serpent of delusion. Due to ignorance, childish beings wander where there is no liberation. Not knowing the meaning of liberation, confused, they commit wicked acts. Due to delusions, childish beings wander, their minds continually disturbed. In the body that has various types of bonds, fire blazes and burns it up. In places where there is no happiness, confused, the body utterly wanders. It does not know that happiness from which utter happiness arises. The field of the Buddha that gives happiness, the wheel of the Dharma that is the supreme medicine, ethical conduct that is true ethics, these are the pure voice of the Tathagata. Then the Blessed One spoke to the Bodhisattva, the great being Paisajasena, as follows. Paisajasena, although sentient beings weep and lament at their time of death, no one will be their protector except for the ripening of the results of good actions they have done. The Blessed One spoke these words and uttered the following verses as well. By committing wicked acts, they fall into sentient beings' hells. They will be dressed in burning garments. In their thirst, they will drink molten iron. Burning embers will fall on their bodies. Once burnt in the extremely unbearable, greatly terrifying hells, their bodies will be set ablaze. They will not know happiness. They will not know Dharma either in any way. Due to what is not Dharma, childish beings wander, not finding even the slightest happiness. Those who have faith and ethics in abundance, possess wisdom and great austerity, and associate with virtuous friends, these will swiftly become a Tathagata.